What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Dom and Pop DC Sports Talk Plus podcast. This week, we're going to be talking about our 3 keys to success for the Commanders this season, as well as going back over our predictions from last week and talking about general NFL news and notes. And of course, we'll get our Che Cazz of the week. All right, what's going on, everybody? How you doing, Pop?
Doing well, doing well.
Yeah, man, it's a good week around here. How you been? Everything good?
Yeah, I'm campione.
There it is. Yeah.
My boys, AC Milan
Yeah,
won
shout
the
out.
Serie A
Show the
championship.
shirt off a little bit for our YouTube audience.
That's right, that's right.
There you
Yeah,
go.
so first time in 11 years we're champions.
That's a good day.
In Serie A, that's Italian soccer. For those of you who don't know better, but if you listen to Dom and Pop Pod, you gotta
Yeah,
catch
you
up
got to
on
start
these
doing
things.
better.
But yeah, that was very exciting. What about you, son?
Yeah, doing good. I'd be wearing my Milan shirt too, but I don't know if you remember when you bought that shirt, you bought me a white one, and I
Yep,
wore that thing to the ground. I wore it to like every soccer practice. It's totally destroyed now. It's not wearable. So I would be
that's all
wearing
right.
that too, but it's not. You can't use it
Respect
anymore. But
Respect for that. Respect for that. But yeah,
yeah,
I
no,
thought there
doing
was
good.
one real quick story related to AC Milan's
Please.
victory, which is pretty cool. Which was posted on ESPN, and that's that Kobe Bryant is a lifelong AC Milan fan. He actually
Awesome.
grew up in Italy from the ages of 16 and 13, spoke fluent in Italian. So if you ever, you could check out interviews with him and stuff. And that was because his dad was playing pro ball in Italy. And the Milan coach actually showed his team a interview with Kobe Bryant where he said that just because they were up 2-0 in the playoffs, NBA playoffs, he said the job is not done.
Yeah.
So, he used that as a way to tell the team that even though they were in the lead. They needed to finish the job with this last victory. But I just thought the tie-in with Kobe was pretty cool. So the fans out there might not know that, but yeah, always cool when you got a Kobe tie-in.
Always, always. Shout out
Yeah.
Kobe Bryant, rest in peace. One of the greatest to ever do it. But yeah, so without further ado, what do you say we jump right into it? It was a hot episode last week. We got to break down the schedule, got to talk about it. Had a lot of fan feedback, so thank you to everybody, all our friends and family that were listening and got
Did you
back
need
to
an
us.
IV after that one? Were you
Man,
okay?
I was rough. I took a nap. I passed out after that episode. I was way too juiced up for that. So, for those of you who don't know, we're avid coffee drinkers here. I've been drinking espresso since I was like 8. Um, and I had my normal, which is for most people not
8.
normal. I've been drinking. I think that was the first time you ever gave me espresso. It was like before a rec
Wow.
soccer game when I was young. But I've been religiously drinking espresso at least for the last 6, 7 years at this point, and I had my normal 4 shots of espresso, which for me is normal. For everybody else, sounds pretty crazy, but I had that before I started the show, and I, as I tend to do, which I'm sure you guys have picked up on, I talked out of my ass a little bit. I didn't quite prepare, and I was just going win, win, win. I wasn't counting, and I got to the end, and I was like, "Oh my god! I predicted 11 wins. What did I
We
just
were
do?"
counting. We were counting. Come on
We were
now.
kind of counting, but I did not like. I would not have predicted 11 wins if I really prepared myself for that. So, but you know what? It makes for good TV. It makes for good entertainment. Speaking of TV, thank you to everybody that's been viewing us on YouTube. And real quick, we didn't say this last week. We're going to have to say this every week. Like, comment, subscribe, check out the YouTube. Thank you to everybody that's looked at us so far. We'll be coming at you guys every week. We're going to get some shorts happening soon. So, yeah, check us out on the YouTube. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe. do all the good YouTube stuff. And thank you to everybody that's been watching so far.
Yeah, and we're still on all the the podcast sites as well. So
Of
don't forget
course.
that in case you're driving around in your car or going for a walk or whatever. You can still catch us out on all the major platforms in the
And
podcast.
you can do both. Like sometimes some of my
Yeah,
favorite podcasts I listen to on Spotify, and then I check the YouTube out when I'm eating dinner later in the week.
even
Don't really have
better.
anything to look at. You can do both. So, but yeah. So why don't we just talk a little bit about week later where we're at with our predictions? So I predicted 11-6, as I said. We'll get into that in a second. You predicted 10-7, right, Pop?
Yeah, yeah. I did
Yep.
say that two of my picks were with my heart, but yeah, 10-7.
So how are we feeling about that a week later? Now we're kind of calmed down. We take a little more time to look at the schedule. What do you think?
It definitely goes against the national pundits for the most part. Every once in a while, you get an outlier guy saying they like the Commanders, but we'll get into the
Yep.
couple of the power rankings out there. But I think I said it at the end. Picked with my heart on a couple of those picks, but yeah, I think 9 wins is more realistic. I could see the range being anywhere from 7 to 10, but I'll say that I was probably, picking more with my heart and what I wanted to see happen. I don't think it's impossible that 10 or 11 could happen. I'll say that, but there are so many question marks. There are so many unknowns with this team. There's a lot of what ifs, I'd
Yeah.
say, with this team. And that's the thing that I think kind of scares you a little bit. Things could go tilt, or if a couple of, not all the what ifs have to hit, the biggest one being at quarterback, but if a couple of the what ifs hit, then we could be looking at a really good season. So,
Yep. Yeah. In the way I looked at my predictions was, like I said, I was kind of flying by the seat of my pants, but the general vibe and the way I was thinking about it was kind of like I Ron has said this is the year that we're going to take that step. We're going to become that team. He made aggressive moves in to go get Wentz and trading back in the draft, getting Dotson. I know it's funny to say that that's like an aggressive move, but that was a bold move to make when you had guys like Olave and Williams on the board. And we yelled about that on the pod for a good bit of time. But Ron stood up. He made some really big balls decisions this year in the offseason. And he's trying to say, okay, this is the year that we're going to win. He's been saying it. He addressed quarterback. He did what he needed to do. So I'm looking at it as, you know what? If this Ron Rivera thing is going to work, this is what we should see this year. Like, if
are
we're
you
really
saying
at
that
the point.
Ron demonstrated some Polinas this year?
Perhaps, yeah, he did.
Yeah.
He did. I don't like the way that he did it necessarily, but you got to give him credit. He did what he had to do.
Yeah.
And some of it is you're working with what you got. But we're not going to get into all that. But yeah. So I kind of look at it as like, you know what? If this is with the schedule that we have, with the moves that we've made, and with the way everybody on the team is talking about the team, this is what we should do. Do I think that's what we're gonna do? No. I think 11 wins. That's crazy. I don't really think we're gonna get there. I'll walk that one back a little bit. I think we would be ecstatic with 10 wins, but I think, barring a nuclear meltdown, the floor should be 9 wins for this team. This should not be a losing team with what we have and with what
Yeah.
we've built. It should not be, and I think that we should be talking about whether or not this Ron thing is working. If we hit another 7 win season or something like that, I
Well, the
expect
so-called
nine
experts
wins.
definitely don't agree with us. ESPN's got us number 22 in the power rankings. An NFL Network article had us at number 26.
It's
So
nuts.
definitely we're swimming upstream a bit. But I kind of like going into the season as underdogs. I definitely think there's potential on this team that far, outweighs and should be closer to the top half of the league. But yeah, I got to say, I got to recap a little bit, right? We
Please.
started the pod. This is pod number 11. So, in honor of our QB1, Carson Wentz, this is pod number 11
There it is.
for a Diamond Pop show. And, Dominic, early on, I'd say, wasn't that too high on the team, a bit critical of the coaching. was not a fan of the Carson Wentz deal at all. Then, kind of came around a bit on Carson and have the draft. And his first reaction to the draft wasn't real positive at all. He was disappointed that we didn't, take one of the bigger
Well,
name receivers at number 11.
If I can
And then
interject
he
really
walked
quick.
that back a little bit.
If
And
I
then,
can interject real
boom,
quick.
we're at 11 wins. Like,
Let me all right, let me
11
break this down
wins.
for you.
Like, oh my God.
Let me break this down for you. So
I
last
think
year,
if you had listened to the build up to that prediction pod, you would have never expected 11 wins from Dominic.
let me walk this back. I have counterpoints here. Let me break this down for you. I like it. So first of all, to say I've come around on Carson Wentz is, accurate, I guess, because
Well, you're not.
I was ready to throw my phone against the wall when I found out we got him the first day. Like I was totally beside myself. So yeah, I've come around a little bit to being like, you know what?
You're more positive than you were at the beginning.
Yes, but there was nowhere to go but up, I guess, is what I'm trying to say. And I think more the Carson Wentz angle I'm going to start with, podcast number 11, shout out Carson, MVP this year, we hope, right? But I want to say it's more of I've realized how bad Taylor Heineke was rather than I've come around on Carson being so much better. And even if Carson is just what he was last year, I think the delta from Taylor to Carson is so much wider than anybody in DC thinks, because we've all Ashburn syndromed ourselves into thinking that Taylor Heineke was actually a serviceable quarterback, and we've all tricked ourselves into thinking that it was acceptable for us to go into the year last year with the quarterback room that we had. That was insane. That was one of the most ridiculous things I've ever witnessed as a fan of this team, that was how we handled that. So he was he was like 20, in my opinion, I think the best ranking you could give him last year was 27, 26 out of the quarterbacks.
He's a gamer, but at the end of the day, he was near the bottom of the league. There was a reason he was on, his sister's couch.
Yeah.
Kudos to him that he's locked up a backup spot, and I think he's a guy that can come in and maybe steal a game or two. I said it from the beginning. I said he's Colt McCoy.
His ceiling is Colt McCoy.
I remember saying that to you
from
the very beginning. Yep. I'm like, that's what we got there. He can come in, he'll steal a game. You'll think, beat Tampa, right? That's pretty good.
Yep.
You'll think, oh man, maybe this is the guy, but he just was never going to be the guy.
Yeah.
Sure. And I agree with you. I think that the bar is so low for quarterback play here that I think as long as Carson Wentz stays healthy,
yeah,
and he does what Carson Wentz does, I think this fan base is going to be happy at the end of the season. Now that might only be 9 wins, and maybe that doesn't get you into playoffs, but has you knocking at the door. But I think, our bar for quarterback play is just so low here.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's the biggest problem. And yeah, just getting back to the Taylor thing a little bit. Like, I don't mean to be disrespectful to Taylor, nothing like that. Like, I really appreciate Heineke for what he was, and I think his character is great. And the fact that he came in as a backup quarterback and brought some kind of cohesion to the team last year in a year where, last year went about as nuclear as it could have. And this brings me to my second point about the 11-win prediction, is that if you told us at the beginning of the year last year, Fitzpatrick was going to get hurt game 1, quarter 1 for that matter, be done. I think quarter 1, but first half at least, be done. Then, next thing, Chase Young tears his ACL halfway into the season. Logan Thomas is going to tear his ACL at some point. We're going to be playing our 4th string center at some point. And no disrespect to Ishmael, he did great. He played great, and our offensive lines coach has those guys balling. We're going to go through 3 kickers. Jameis Winston is going to throw a Hail Mary on us halfway through the game to end the half and score a touchdown on us. What would you have predicted? 4 wins, 5 wins for that team last year with all the things that went wrong? We had as close to a nuclear season as we could have and still pulled out 7 wins.
Right.
Now, I think that should have been 9 or 10 wins last year, because you look at the Blewett game where Blewett kicked for 2 games off his offensive linemen's helmets. That should have never happened. That was nuts. Hopkins missed a couple important field goals. You look at the Gibson fumble in week 1 in a game that we may have won. There were a lot of moments. Now, those moments are there for every NFL team, but all that to say, I think we've improved enough that we should expect 9-10 wins from this team this year, barring the luck being that bad. And last year we played Rodgers, Mahomes, Brady. We don't have that this year. Herbert. So we'll see. I don't know. I think it's a better. I think we're in better standing this year than we were last year for a winning season.
Let's hope the Dom prediction is, or even the pop prediction is where we land, as opposed to what the so-called experts are saying.
Yeah, I mean, and just real quick on the so-called experts, this same ESPN article that has us ranked 22, I think, which I can see. I think it's a little low, but they have us ranked 22. They say that the player who benefited the most from the draft in Carolina is Sam Darnold, and Carolina drafted Matt Corral. So Sam Darnold is going to actually be on somebody's couch because of the draft within 8 weeks, and they say that he's the most benefit. So, I mean, what do we know? But what do they know too? You know.
Right.
But anyways, yeah. Let's. Why don't we just pivot around? Pop, you want to talk about the little bit of the Dan Snyder situation and what's going on there? Just touch on it real quick.
Not really, but
Yeah.
but I will touch on it real quick. I mean, I guess I was actually thinking to myself, been a couple of weeks since there was any news out, and it seems like either the Washington Post or Pro Football Focus has to get a story out there every week or two. And,
Yeah, they got an intern that they just forced to come up with something about Dan Snyder, no matter what's going on.
I mean, you don't know what to think. You know, obviously we're all hopeful, or we want this situation to get resolved one way or another, and it almost does feel like the only way for it to truly go away is with change.
Yep.
But I guess the headline is that they said that the owners are counting votes on whether or not to oust Dan Snyder. And of course, an unnamed owner, it's always an unnamed owner, right? Or unnamed source, said that ownerships are getting fed up, and this latest allegation on the financial improprieties might be the straw that's breaking the camel's back. But we'll see. Yeah, it's one of those things. I'll believe it when I see it.
Yeah.
But it is news. It probably will get a lot of talk on Sports Talk this week. And I said it before. I say it again. I just hope it gets resolved. You know, the NFL has to come out and say we're either standing by this guy, and this is going to be the ownership group for the foreseeable future, or we're going to take action and do something about it. Could get ugly before it gets better.
Yep.
For sure.
Yeah, and we don't want to talk too much about the Dan Snyder situation, because should it ever resolve and he's done, we're gonna have one hell of a celebratory podcast. So we're gonna save all our talking for that moment. It's gonna get crazy.
Oh my God!
We might have to put it behind a paywall because it's just gonna be crazy content that week.
There goes our chances to having with the interview requests we put in for Dan and Tanya to come on the show.
I don't want to interview either of them, so that's fine. That's fine. I'm okay with that. Ron Rivera, we'd love to have you. Scott Turner, Jack Del Rio, we'd love to have you. Dan Snyder, Che Cazz. Not on this pod, as far as I'm concerned. But yeah, so other quick headline: NFC East, Eagles signed James Bradbury. Ron managed to pull in every other Panther to this team, but the one that could really help us, we don't bring in. Pop, you have a theory on that? Give it to the people.
Here's my theory, and not that it's, but I think if everyone, when you look at these scenarios, every big name free agent that becomes available, we want to sign. Yeah, probably all 32 teams, right? Or fans there want to sign him. Bradbury with the Carolina connections did make some sense, especially it is a position of need. What isn't a position of need? It seems like almost every position group we say that about, right? But the reason we're not making other big signings, in a 7.5 to 10 million, I would say it's a lot of money.
Yeah.
It's because we signed Carson Wentz, but more importantly, we're saving up money to extend Terry.
Yep.
And I think that that is the reason. And actually, I thought that for a while now, just common sense thinking about it. And if that's the end game, if we do sign Terry, which, JP Finley, I always kind of leverage JP as the source here. JP was early in terms of predicting the Commanders was going to be the name, and he remains extremely optimistic that we're going to sign Terry. So at the end of all of this, if we sign Terry, Terry to me is like our Art Monk. So you
Yeah.
old school guys like me will remember, right? Art Monk in the 80s, he was our number one receiver. So it didn't matter who else we brought in, Gary Clark, Charlie Brown, Ricky Sanders, they were all great players, but they all deferred to Art Monk. And Terry's like Art Monk. Even if Dotson balls out or Curtis Samuel comes back and plays well, let's hope it's always going to be Terry's team, and we need to get him re-signed. So I just think that they're saving the money to re-sign Terry. Maybe even other guys like a Deron Payne or Marcus Sweat or those kind of guys, right? I mean, we've got to play the salary cap game there. So if that's how it ends up, I'm okay with it. And I think that's the reason they're not bringing in other expensive free agents.
Yeah, man, I don't know about Marcus Sweat, but I hope we can bring Montez Sweat back. I'll tell you that much.
Sweat, I did it again.
I'll tell you that much. We'll have to do like a compilation at one point.
When I start riffing, man, it's dangerous.
You just pulling names. No, I like it. I agree. I agree with your take.
Sorry, Montez.
Love to have him on the show as well. But no, I agree with your take. I think it's as much as I would love to have Bradbury. I mean, we should be okay at corner. We're not. We should be okay with corner because Jackson should.
We might be.
We need Jackson to be what we signed him to be this year, and then I think
started
we're okay
playing better later in the year.
Yeah, and hopefully, we heard a lot of rumblings about that being like a system issue. So hopefully they got all that worked out. Would love to have Bradbury, but I agree with you. I mean, I think that's money we're just going to need for Terry at this point. I could talk for 2 hours about what put us in the position that we have to save every nickel and dime for Terry. I'm not going to do that.
Please don't talk for Terry.
I'm not going to do that. Maybe we'll save that for a mid-June podcast or something like that.
I'll tell you what. I'll just say hi and then go eat dinner or something. Let you go for 2 hours.
Yep, and I'll be outlining a diagram of the water slide that Ryan Fitzpatrick hurt his hip on. But yeah, so we can. The James Bradbury thing. It's it's a shame. I mean, Jesus, there are like 30 other teams I would have rather go to than the Philadelphia Eagles. For people who don't know this, the Eagles are my number 32 in the NFL. I would rather, like, if the Eagles and the Cowboys ever played in a Super Bowl, I'd rather the Cowboys win.
But see, the Eagles, here's again, this is sort of people not thinking it all the way through. And whether you agree or disagree or you think that the Eagles are in better shape than we are, fair. But they've got a quarterback on the cheap in Jalen Hurts, which the jury's still out. I happen to like the kid.
I'm very pro Hurts as well.
I've liked other kids. We talked about my love for RG3 last podcast. But, they've got Hurts on the cheap. So they can sign A.J. Brown and a Bradbury and make these bigger splashes because they aren't invested as quarterback like we are now. Do you agree with what we did with Carson Wentz? Maybe not, but that is the reality of the situation. They've got the quarterback at a rookie deal, and they're able to invest in other areas a little more so than we are. And Eagles look strong. Dallas is still going to be strong. It's not going to be easy in the division by any means.
Yep. That being said, we're going to need to win this year. We're going to need to probably win a lot. I don't think this is going to be a 7 or 8 wins the division kind of year. I think you're going to need to get to double-digit wins to win the division, and you're definitely going to need to get to 9 wins to get a wild card spot, probably double-digit wins as well. So that being said, what are your top 3 keys to success? You talk about players, coaching, whatever you want to front office, whatever you want to talk about, Pop. What do you think? Top 3 keys to success for this year?
Yeah, so we're saying we're going to do this without Carson Wentz. So, Carson Wentz is the obvious one. We're going to say, obviously Carson Wentz has to play well, and be worth somewhere in the range of what you're paying for him. But other than Carson Wentz, what are the top three things?
Yep.
I thought about this a little bit, and I said, number one for me would be Chase Young and having a bounce back year. Not that he has to be an absolute world beater, but Chase Young and that defensive line, talent wise, they're still our best unit by far. You can argue that. It's not necessarily easy to come off an ACL and have a world beater season, but he's got to bounce back, at least maybe be to that rookie year level. Solid, playing well, making those big splash plays every once in a while, and that unit as a whole has to be our strength.
Well, talent-wise and investment-wise, too, that's 4 first-round picks. They need to play like 4 first-round picks. That's
absolutely. And even now that, we picked Fedarius, I mean, depth is there as well. Some of those backup defensive ends played well. So, yeah, that needs to be our top position group. And then wide receiver, obviously we know Terry's going to be there, but either Dotson or Curtis Samuel, someone else has to step up and really contribute, right? I mean, we can't go through another season where it's guys that we've never heard of that are all of a sudden playing well or decent. We think, oh, well, they might be good. Someone else has to step up. And I think one of those two guys has to have a standout year along with Terry. And then for me, third, it's a tough one, but I'll just take one a little bit out of left field and say a running game.
All right. Right. I like it.
I think that, I think a running game, a solid running game, not putting the ball on the field, seeing if the rook comes in and plays well, and maybe pushes Antonio Gibson a bit. I think that, we've got to have a really good running game in order. And also, part of the problem with our defense these last couple of years, they haven't lived up to the standard, but they've also been on the field too much. And if we can sustain drives, win that time of possession game, keep them off the field, have them more rested, I think that could be a huge key to success. So, Doc Walker, if you're listening, that was for you, the running back position.
Love it. There you go. So, that's all solid keys all around, Papa. I like it. So, key number one for me is going to be adaptability in coaching. That's going to be key number one. We need to be making adjustments early and often. I'm going to go a little bit different from you. I'm not going players. I might have one key that is going to be players, but I'm going to talk more about team management and the team as a whole. So adaptability in coaching is going to be number one for me. We need to make adjustments earlier than like week 8 or whenever we made them next year. I don't want to see this team start off 3-6 as we seem to always do. And that predates Ron, but Ron came in and was like, my teams play best in December. And I pride myself on that. And it's like, okay, year 1, I'll give you that. That's fair. You're rebuilding a nightmare situation off a 3-13 team. I'll give you, it'll probably take a few months to really see what you can do. Year 2, okay, fine. Ryan Fitzpatrick gets hurt week 1, and now you're working with your backup quarterback all year. But there were still mistakes on the defensive side, completely unacceptable. You've got guys not jumping up to catch a Hail Mary to end a half, not prepared for stuff like that. That just can't happen. That's not okay. Year 3, your guys better be playing their best ball first week of the year. And it should only get better, but you need to be delivering an A performance week 1. And that brings me to key number 2, which is I think we have to start hot. We need at least a 2-1 start, in my opinion. Should be 3-0. I want to come out the gate hot, and we need to win both of those games against Jacksonville and Detroit. I would rather have this team do that one really weird Jim Zorn year where we're really hot at the beginning and then we flipped and went bad towards the end. I would rather have this team do that than start weak. And I think the only way we're going to get to the caliber of season that we expect is we have to win the games we're supposed to win early. So we need to get started hot. That's my second key. And yeah, my third key, we can't talk about Carson Wentz. Of course, everybody knows that's just like, it's all going to come down to Carson at the end of the day. But key number 3 is going to be the offense as a whole. We got to be able to score. And I don't care if it's Gibson I don't care if it's Dotson. I don't care if it's Wentz. I don't care if it's Howell or Heineke. We got to be able to score. 17 points is not enough.
Yeah,
We
that's good.
we
Good
gotta
point.
hit that. We hear B. Mitch talks about Joe Gibbs's famous quote on the radio: the 24 points. We gotta hit that threshold. I think we gotta be scoring well because honestly, I think the defense is good. I think the defense is very overrated, and I think expecting a top 5 defensive performance this year is, that's what everybody's told us we have. I don't see it, to be honest with you. And I think we're a little bit more towards the 12 to 8 range defensively if everybody performs the way they're supposed to. So if we do that, we're going to need to put up some points. So I want to see us in the top half of the league offensively this year with everything we've invested into it. So those will be my 3 keys.
Excellent. Dom with the old school Joe Gibbs quote.
Yeah,
I like that.
it was funny. Funny
Flipping the
story
tables on me.
related to Joe Gibbs. When Joe Gibbs came, it was right. What was it? What year was it? It was like 2006 ish when
Oh man, you're testing my memory now.
Gibbs 2.0 happened. I was young.
I think
was
so,
young.
yeah.
And it was like some of my earlier memories of the team. And Pops was super excited, of course, as anybody would be. And I remember like pretending to be really excited, but not knowing why I was excited, but just like my dad's excited, so I want to be excited. But yeah, shout out Joe Gibbs. That
I
would
just
be a
kept
really
saying
cool
Joe
idea.
Gibbs, Dominic, Joe Gibbs. I guess
Yeah.
he finished in 2007.
Okay, yeah. So it was probably
according to the Googles.
yep.
So yeah,
So,
so I guess
yeah,
he would
that's-
have come back. I think he coached 4 years on that second stint. So 2002, 2003, something like that.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
those are our 3 keys to success.
So basically, real quick, over under what makes a successful season in your mind? Real quick.
over 9.5 wins.
So 10-win season. All right.
That's success. Or I mean, if we find our way into the playoffs at 9 wins, you're not going to see me complaining. Anything under 9 wins, I'm going to freak out. I'm going to be called. I'm just saying it now. I'm not saying it's rational. I'm not saying it should be, but you're going to see me in this chair in January calling for Ron's head next year. That's just what it's going to be. We cannot have another 7-win season. I can't do it. And 8 wins is not enough. 9 wins,
Yeah.
winning season. It has
I think
to
it's
be
like I think it's like everything else. It's going to come down to how it happens. But I kind of tend to agree with you. I'd love to see a good start. I'd love to see us in contention the whole season and not
Yeah.
have to make a 4 or 5 game winning streak at the end in order to get a playoff spot, which always seems to happen with us. And credit, we've been able to pull that off a couple of times here. But yeah, I think I just want to see us just be in contention the entire season with
Yep.
either a winning record or right around 500, and then hopefully we make that strong push at the end. So
I mean, the
Not
bottom
great.
line is we saw a lot of teams that were right around our level in the NFL. I'm thinking like Denver, Vegas, Philly get a lot better in this offseason. So
Oh, yeah.
can we keep up with them? And can we get as much, can we improve at the same rate that they've improved at? Or are we staying in that group and maybe receding? I want to see us move forward with those teams the same way. So
well, that's a scary part. I think is that last year, in many ways, we were below expectations in performance. Defense was definitely way below expectations. Offense, you could argue because of injury, just never had a chance, right? But still, you're counting on a lot of things happening from last year. Chase Young bouncing back, Curtis Samuel bouncing back, even Carson Wentz bouncing back. That's a scary part. Like I said,
Yeah.
it's all the number of what ifs. But in order to have that kind of season, you're going to need, people to meet expectations, not be below it. So
Yep,
all
and
right.
I guess
Very
that's
good.
probably the one key we can probably say as a unit is what you just said. I think that was really poignant, Pop, is that we need to see more of meeting and exceeding expectations than we see of making excuses as to why we're not getting to expectations, which was a lot of what happened last year.
That's a great
So
point.
we
I
need
think
to
that's
see,
a great closing point to this topic.
Yeah, we need to see that. So let's get into our Che Cazz of the week. Without further ado, let's give the people something to laugh at.
Yeah, this is the people's segment, right? Yeah,
I mean,
Che
man,
Cazz of the week.
this is the biggest. Probably been the biggest story this week. Funnily enough, I guess it's a classic mid-May football story, right? But
Yeah.
Nick Saban and Jimbo Fisher going at it. Man, I want to say this Che Cazz is in no way to Jimbo Fisher, in my opinion. You can disagree, Pop, but I love Jimbo coming right back at Nick hot. And I love the fact that he's like, I'm not answering his phone calls. He wants to talk crazy in the media and then call me later and be like, hey, man, I didn't mean, no. You meant what you said. You said it in front of a bunch of people. Own it.
Wasn't that the name of that big dude that sat between us on that last coast to coast plane ride? What was his name, Jimbo or something? I mean, is there a better name for an SEC coach than Jimbo Fisher?
I'll tell you what, I'd take the over.
No offense, Jimbo, you know.
I'd take the over on the big fella sitting in between us being named Jimbo. I'd take the over on that. I like that. What did he say? He said, you either got to push a shovel or push a mouse, but either way, you got to be willing to do it 8 hours a day for the rest of your life, something like that. Yeah, I think the over on the guy talking like that on a flight to two strangers being named Jimbo. But anyways, yeah.
He was liking those armrests, wasn't he? He was liking those.
That's just real quick. Since we're Che Cazz, you're going to get on an airplane, and look, I don't care what size you are or whatever. I don't care about any of that. But you go get on an airplane, your goal, no matter if you're 120 pounds or 600, your goal should be to take up as little space as possible so that everybody around you can be comfortable. Again, I don't care what size you are. Everybody should be trying to be as small as you can when you're in that seat. We're on a Southwest 737 going across the country. This is not a comfortable situation.
And if you happen to be sitting behind Mike Tyson, for God's sake, leave the man alone.
Yes. That's the big one. That's the big one for sure. But yeah, no more of this on flights. No more of this. Let's tuck in. Let's keep it tight. Cross your arms like this. Cross your legs, maybe.
You went that whole flight on the window seat like this. And I was amazed, man. 5.5 hours, you didn't move.
It was
horrible. Never even went to the bathroom.
I was so stiff and I was dying. I needed a massage when I got off the flight. But
made for a good car ride home. But anyway, back to
Nick Saban. I mean, we don't need to get into the direct quotes. Everybody knows what he's been saying. He's basically complaining that, he's had his pick of the litter because he has millions and millions of dollars in support from his program to create NFL-like facilities. And, he's not doing anything wrong, but everybody's driving sports cars in the Alabama parking lot. It's amazing how these kids, they just come up on these Lamborghinis and all these crazy, probably not Lamborghinis, but all these crazy things. But he's not doing anything wrong. And now that it's actually legal to pay players and to incentivize with money, Texas A&M smoked them because they're just willing to play the game, basically. And the same guy who's bragging about how his quarterback had a nearly 7-figure NIL deal last year, who by all accounts is a top 3 quarterback in college football going into next year, is now talking about, it's just not fair what's going on and blah, blah, blah.
Poor Nick Saban.
Shut up. Boo. Shut up. Che Cazz. Che Cazz.
No,
I don't, add it to the list.
That's a good one.
He's on the Dan Snyder list. I don't even want to interview Nick Saban. Che Cazz. I don't care.
Yeah, I mean, it's we got a lot of Alabama players on our team, so, we love all you guys.
It's Alabama North.
In case you're listening. But, it was ridiculous. And he, obviously he walked back his comment. He even picked on poor Deion Sanders at Jackson State because I guess they landed one NIL guy. And Deion said it perfectly, man. He nailed it. I thought it was great. He kind of kept his cool and responded back and said, look, all Nick Saban was doing there was he was making a splash statement so that his boosters hear him. Yeah. He's basically saying, look, you all need to step up, create more of these NIL deals. But the whole NIL thing is wild. I mean, I have no issue with players, earning money off of their name and image and likeness. But, it is getting a bit out of control. It'll be interesting to see where that all goes.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it's the same thing. Everything's a competition, right? And the teams that have it or do more of it are going to win that competition. But yeah, it's pretty wild. We basically, officially not under the table have professional players in college ball now.
Yep.
For all intents and purposes. But it's interesting. We can probably get into that whole discussion another time.
I think
But
that's
yeah,
another
pretty wild
another
with Nick
mid-June
Saban. He
podcast
kind of made
topic.
an ass of himself, I think, for sure, with those comments.
Agree. And the Deion Sanders thing, I'm glad you touched on that. It's just so ridiculous. It's like, way to yeah, it's just so nuts to me. And not to get too political with it, but it's like you got a black coach at an HBCU, lands a massive recruit. This is like the biggest deal in a long time. And it's a good thing because if you talk about these players, they get funneled into the same few programs, and these lower underprivileged schools don't get the opportunity to get these players and maybe grow their programs the way that they deserve to. And to take a shot at that when you're Alabama, I mean, you are the college football entity. It's ridiculous.
Let's talk about the ultimate speaking without thinking. But
yeah,
Che Cazz and Nick Saban.
Che Cazz and Nick Saban. Agreed. So we'll leave it at that.
And anybody called Jimbo has a special place in the hearts of the Dom Pod.
This is a pro Jimbo podcast. Well, there might be some Jimbos out there we don't want to agree with on everything, but generally we stick with the pro Jimbo podcast. True. But we're not liable to any comments a Jimbo may or may not make. Let's leave it at that.
That's exactly right.
So speaking of Che Cazz, let's check in on our NBA brackets really quick. Mod on with me. Horrible for me. I'm just all my teams are out, basically. I am maxed out on points. And I'm just hoping that Golden State blows this so that I can finish a win, which sucks because I don't want to root against Steph, but the freaking Nets screwed me over so bad, and the Suns choked against Dallas.
You picking the Nets screwed yourself over.
All right. I'll remember that. I'll remember that line. I'll remember that line.
I mean, son, part of being a parent is you gotta give it to your kids straight sometimes.
All right, so Pop.
And you picked the Nets. I mean, it's not like you picked the number one seed to win it all. I mean, you did in Phoenix. Okay, so that's not your fault. You got screwed by Phoenix. You didn't get screwed by the Nets.
So when you take Commanders defense in the 4th round of our fantasy draft next year, and then you say, man, Commanders defense, I'm not getting nothing. I'm going to come back like you do every year, by the way. Dad always drafts Commanders defense in like the 8th round or something crazy. It's like T. Higgins is on the board, and Dad's like, Commanders D, they're going to surprise people. I'm like, what are you thinking? But anyways, when you do that, I'm going to come back and say, all right, you picked them.
Hit us up on Twitter or in the comments, right? Tell us if you agree with Pop. I think that pick's on Dom.
Yeah, but anyways, so yeah, looking rough for me. Dallas down 2-0 to Golden State. Miami leading Boston 2-1. So I guess Pop is still in good shape because Golden State wins this round. It doesn't really matter what happens in the finals. I picked Golden State to go all the way,
which is looking like a pretty solid pick. But
that was the right pick.
But what do you think about the games and the series overall? Like, I mean, obviously it looks like Golden State's in control. Luka started off hot in that game too, and they were looking to be in great shape, and then all of a sudden, just Golden State turned it on, and then Boston and Miami seems a bit of a series of attrition. They're just going back and forth. Wouldn't be surprised if that goes Game 7. It looks like I could talk myself into either one of those teams winning, but it does feel like it's setting up to be Golden State's year. We'll see. What do you think?
I think a big part in why this may be Golden State's year is I don't see that series against Dallas going to more than 6. And I think 6 is even probably a stretch. I mean, I think if you just look at it on paper now, they're headed back to Dallas, right? So they got 2 games in Dallas and then back to Golden State. And I think it's going to be I think there's no way that Golden State doesn't win one of those 2 games in Dallas.
Right.
When you talk about, you look at Phoenix going up 2-0 in Dallas. Yeah, you have Chris Paul, but this is still a pretty young team. It makes sense that a guy like Luka can catch fire and can knock off 2 games and push this to a 7-game series. That Devin Booker's still young; they're still figuring it out.
It's really hard to explain that Phoenix situation. It's just like, you can't really
Horrible.
point to, I don't think, Chris Paul was kind of limping around at the end. But I don't think they really suffered from any injuries. It was just
Yeah.
crazy how they underachieved in the playoffs.
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy the way that Phoenix thing fell apart. Obviously hurts for my bracket. I would have loved to seen Chris Paul get a ring. I'm always rooting for that. So hurts for that as well. But, shout outs to you, Pop. Good pick on the Golden State thing. Hindsight's 2020. And even as we're reading down the brackets, when you pick Golden State to go all the way, my heart kind of sunk. I was like, oh, I should have done that. I just didn't think to do it, and I was like, I should have done that, man.
It wasn't that well thought out. I was just kind of going off my gut. I was kind of picking my heart, too. I'm a big Steph fan.
Yeah, well, you look at
Yeah.
just the experience that these guys have. I don't see
it's
against
coming
the young
together,
Dallas
and
team.
Draymond's picking it up, and
Yep.
they've just got all their guys back. But, I mean, real quick, who you got? Who do you think takes Miami, Boston, and who do you think got Golden State, Dallas, and who do you think wins it all at this point? Real quick.
I think I just got a gut feeling it's going to be Boston Golden State in the finals, and I think Golden State wins it all. I personally would like to see Miami, aside from my feelings about the Celtics, and I don't even, I don't feel that strongly about the Celtics. I just prefer them to win less. But yeah, I love Jimmy Butler, so I would love to see Miami get back.
Yeah,
to the
hopefully.
finals.
I mean, he was actually left the game. It sounds like it's just soreness in his knee. Not that he did anything to it. It's kind of a maintenance issue, but hopefully he comes back strong. I think that's a tough one. Like the Miami Boston series, I think is a flip of the coin. But I'll go Miami Golden State with Golden State winning it.
I will say if Dallas happens to pull this off and beat Golden State in 7 or something like that, man, I'm gonna be in a Mavs jersey for the finals. They won't, but I would be so pulling. Like it's so hard not to root for that team. And that's the team that both of us had going out in the first round. So
that's true. Well, Luka was
messed
hurt.
That one up.
That's the incredible thing is that he was actually injured going into the playoffs. His performance has been unreal. So
unbelievable.
Shout out to him for sure.
But anyways, what do you say we wrap this thing up, Pop?
Sounds good. Sounds good.
Yeah, I think we pretty much covered everything. I mean, you got anything? Any last words you want to get in for Dan Snyder? Any Jimbos out there? Anything?
Nah, I think I'm good. I'd say it's good. Another good week.
Good stuff. Yeah, I agree. So Twitter, Instagram at DC Sports Plus, YouTube, Dom and Pop Podcast. Like, comment, subscribe, follow. Tell your friends. Tell everybody you know named Jimbo. We want to get the Jimbo Army following this podcast.
I don't know. I think you made a good point earlier.
No. We don't want.
We may not be aligned with the.
Let's call it quits right there. Thank you guys. Thanks, everybody, for
Jimmy's
listening.
and Jims we're good with. Jimbos, we're gonna have to screen some
Case
resumes.
by case basis. Case by case
We're gonna have
basis
to
on the
screen
Jimbo
some
audience.
resumes.
All right, guys. Well, thank you so much for listening and have a good week.
All right. Take care, everybody.
Baby, I'm on your chain, can't complain. You're so lovely, looking in your eyes, paradise. I'm so close to heaven now, just waiting on you. Love me like that, just love me like I love you, baby. Just love me like I love you.